Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. It's a podcast about the news that, whilst endeavoring to stay comedic, sometimes falls prey to the factual realities of the world in which it encounters.
It's a nice little disclaimer at the start. So you might start laughing and then you might be crying by the end of it. Who knows? It's an emotional journey. We're taking you on a storytelling extravaganza.
We go for both.
Week. Yeah.
Get you a podcast that can do both.
Emotional range, as it were. I was strived for that in my acting degree and never quite achieved it. But we've got, starting off this week, we're looking to focus on Australia. Then we'll give you a little update of what's happening in America, the bipolar world that changes by the minute in Washington.
Newsflash, it's bad.
But
Breaking news, still fucked up.
Still fucked up. And we're going to start, though, this week in Melbourne, because we're Melbourne boys. Men. We're actually men now. We can't say boys anymore because we're like 35.
We're middle-aged.
Yeah, we're middle-aged.
Getting there.
Literal grey hair coming up the side of my face. We're Melbourne men, and in Melbourne, there has been a pretty strong uptick in the number of arson attacks occurring around the city over the last several weeks, particularly over the last 2 weeks.
My main question, Adam, is how is this Dan Andrews' fault?
Look, there's got to be a 6 degrees of separation game we could play here where it probably would be.
All roads lead back to Chairman Dan, as we all know, in Victoria-based stories. So,
although it's somehow, Jacinta Allen is not particularly popular at the moment, and
she does have the advantage of not being particularly well known compared to Dan Andrews.
Yeah.
So, which I think we're sort of easing back into the post-COVID reality where the premiers of various states are mostly unknown to their constituents, which I think from their perspective is probably preferable.
Flying under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, you don't want your voters knowing too much about you. With Dan Andrews coming out announcing the coronavirus numbers every day, it was being watched very closely. What is he wearing a sports jacket? Is he wearing a tracksuit jacket? Like, how bad are the numbers going to be based on his sartorial choices? And we've sort of moved away from that now, where if you say Jacinta Allen to a lot of Victorians, a lot of them will say, huh?
Well, yeah, Jacinta Allen is quoted at the bottom of this article. She's not even, she's not even near the top.
Yeah,
so
not even a headline figure in an alleged crime spree in the capital of her state. Yeah.
So, what's been happening over the last 2 weeks? 15. It's actually more because there was some last night. 15 venues incidents have occurred.
Yeah, wow.
Mostly arson attacks. So that
it really advances the argument that I've made previously on the podcast that we should timestamp the time of recording on the show, because by the time the clips get out to people, they're like, no, actually that's not fucking correct. And it's like, yeah, but podcasts happen in the past. It's not a breaking news organization, us three sitting in our second bedrooms, recording a show on the internet. It's things happen after we record. I don't know if you guys know that, but.
And some venues have been hit multiple times, but they're mostly like restaurants, hospitality venues, bars, that kind of thing. Typically what's happening is, one or two people are rocking up, spraying the place with petrol, whatever they're doing, setting it on fire and creating an arson attack and then running away. Now, the police have arrested, a dozen people thus far. And what they've worked out is that most of the people carrying out these attacks are actually kids. They are, 14, 15, 16. They're not very old, a lot of them.
Presumably, whoever's pulling the strings and getting them to conduct these attacks is getting underage people to do so because they're less criminally culpable in a court of law if they're caught, right?
Well, potentially, or they're just more gullible. So what they've worked out is that...
so probably just more likely to just accept... They've quoted here that some of them were just paid $500, go set this place on fire, whilst an older person... might be like, no, because
I need at least 1,000.
The criminal culpability and the risks, and are you insane?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, it's cost of living crisis. Like to get a brand new PlayStation, it's
Yeah.
just under $2,000 nowadays. So
Hey guys, get ready with me while I battle the Cozzy Lives by accepting $500 to set a Chapel Street bar on fire.
yeah,
Yeah. Now, most of these attacks have happened without people. The venues have been empty. They've been closed. So there's been no sort of harm to people. Although, like the Emerson the other day, there was a drive-by where apparently they were shooting at the venue, although they said the blanks were used. But, like, apparently what they've worked out is that, the offenders are being paid, 500 to as much as 20 grand in some cases, and they're using encrypted messaging apps. So things like Telegram or other applications that are out there where they don't really know who they're dealing with. Like in some reporting I saw out of news.com.au was that, they're using like code names like Sinatra and like other mob boss names, right? Or like, Sinatra had links to the mob. Frank
Sinatra
that's a whole other
had mob ties as sort of fictitiously documented in the film The Godfather with their singer crooner character. What was that guy's name? It doesn't matter. But
is he the guy who gets the horse head in the bed?
No, that's a movie studio producer. No, this is the guy who's like, Godfather, what am I gonna do? I can't do this. I can't be in this movie. And Godfather goes, "You can be a man. That's what you can do." It's that character who's I forget the name of it, but it's meant to be an allegory for Sinatra and his alleged mob ties, right?
So well-researched code names. Props to these kids.
It's not the kids. It's the people that are hiring them.
So it's kind of like Uber for crime. It's like it's encrypted messaging app. You don't know where it comes from. You don't know where it goes. You just get $500 worth of fucking whatever Bitcoin in your account, and then off you go do some crime. It's literally like the thing in the movie where they're like, "Tell me who the Connect was." It's like, I never met him. I just got a message under a chair, and it's like, how could you not know who you're dealing with in commissioning crimes, right? But it's like, it turns out the 21st century, my least favorite century thus far, has not only enabled this kind of sort of headless crime, decentralized networks, but also crucially has not given us the flying cars that we were promised. So
they're coming, George, don't worry, they're coming.
They are not.
The other thing that's been interesting is that a lot of these kids have just been like filming themselves doing it on social media. It's like putting it out.
I hate to give advice to people committing crimes, but that seems like not the best way to not get caught is to create your own evidence and post it.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's kind of one, you want the shock and awe of it. Like that, I mean, I assume, Adam, you're building to this is to maybe like the motivations behind like why they think all these are linked. Rather than just we've happened to coincidentally have, what'd you say, at least 15?
At least 15. There's like 16 or 17 now.
Yeah.
Like it's increased.
Arson or like at least perceived violence with blanks, attacks in hospitality venues. But I guess you want that to spread, not just like, legacy media like the ABC reporting on it's one thing, but I guess, having vision out there of it happening is another. But you're right. Like it's the old Simpsons quote, I think, from Jimbo Jones of filming this crime spree was the best idea we've ever had.
And the thing is, like, we know from people have run studies on social media that have shown that trends, like the algorithm incentivizes and pushes out this kind of content to people, which means that you might also get like copycats. We've seen how this kind of like to do with, anorexia and eating disorders and things like that, how that stuff spreads online and actually like encourages other people to also do the same. There's a contagion effect with this sort of stuff. So it's concerning.
It's like, and the thing is, because the younger kids who are sort of in, pseudo gangs, that kind of thing, there's this kind of, peer pressure, I guess, with it. And this sort of this is the whole thing why, everyone gets this sort of like, there's this whole like Labor is not tough on crime mentality. So here we go. Bring it back to Dan Andrews. Here you go. Labor is not tough on crime. Therefore, we need to be arresting these kids and locking them away for 30,000 years is what some people are saying online, right?
Yeah, I think if you listen to the hard right and we, sort of apply all these, mandatory sentencing and tougher laws on crime, I think you'll find, and studies show this, that the harder you get on crime, the more crime just goes away historically and just never pops up again. And that's in the
Never
places
ever.
where they're extremely hard on crime, crime has been solved and never reoccurs again historically. So yeah,
No.
perhaps there's something to it. I mean, maybe we should listen to these guys.
I mean, it's-
and
it's almost
just
like-
sentence children to life in prison because it seems nicer on the label of the the Herald Sun, the headline.
It's almost like this has never happened before. Oh, wait, it has. So this is very similar to what happened. They call it the illicit tobacco wars, the illicit tobacco market, which is still kind of a thing, but it sort of died down a little bit over the last sort of 12 months. But basically, same thing. There were tobacco outlets getting firebombed, not very long ago because of people selling black market tobacco. Now,
And links to organized crime.
And links to
supply the
organised
tobacco,
crime,
and
correct.
You're with this supplier and you should be with this
Yeah.
supplier and like protection
Yeah.
rackets and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So
So, why is this happening? The police, as we've sort of pointed out, have launched a big investigation. It's called Operation Eclipse. They've got it's a task force. We're setting up a task force, and that's what Jacinda Allen's been talking about. Is we're taking this very seriously and we're setting up a task force.
13-year-olds everywhere will be shaking at their boots at the announcement of a task force. That's
Yes.
definitely a strong deterrent in the war on crime.
Indeed. But it's not immediately clear exactly why specifically the venues are being targeted, right? And the reason why it's probably got more cut through perhaps than the tobacco war situation, which we didn't really talk about on the show.
I mean, we
time.
touched on it a little bit. It was
Yeah,
kind
it
of a
wasn't-
very local story, right? Like
Yeah.
it wasn't a...
But the reason why...
I think Trump was banning Muslims at the time. So I think it's just kind of like, well, I guess that takes precedence.
Potato.
Tobacco stuff is going to go in the C block if it gets mentioned at all.
But the reason why this is cutting through is that, these are fairly well-known hospitality venues that are getting targeted. So
Yeah.
people are freaking out.
As
Hospitality
you
venues...
say,
so
like
the
South Melbourne and Chapel Street and Paran are
Yeah.
like very visible, right? That's the sort of
Highly
centre of
visible.
Melbourne's, it's sort of inner suburban
And yeah.
nightlife, right?
And you want to scare people, hit them where it hurts on their chap laps.
Indeed. Can't
very
drive
visible.
a Ferrari down the street if it's burning.
At 40 kilometers an hour, which I think the Italians would agree is the best use of a Ferrari.
So all of these venues sell alcohol. What does that mean? There is a report by The Age which is starting to sort of perhaps piece together how this might link. One of the venues that was hit was a distilling factory in Keysborough. Recently, we didn't really talk about this. The Albanese government, federal government, provided us some tax relief to effectively targeting the microbrewery sort of startup distillery industry. So what was happening was there was a whole thing a couple of years ago where breweries, still is, breweries, distilleries, startups, were all going out of business because they can't afford the tax. The tax, alcohol tax, and we'll talk about it in a minute, is very expensive in Australia, and like a lot of distilleries trying to get to market, trying to ramp up production, can't pay the tax bill that's associated with the amount they're producing. So
It's hard to start up a business, right? It's expensive. There's a lot of regulation, particularly with alcohol, that one needs to stay abreast of. It favors cashed up providers, which is why you've seen,
establishment.
whilst you've seen a lot of growth in the sort of microbrewery market, the actual market story more broadly is one of consolidation, right? CUB and these other big players kind of like
Yeah.
gobbling
Buying
up.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other
You're an
smaller
independent.
breweries.
You're an independent craft brewery until you're bought out by fucking Asahi.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then your uncle.
So yeah, the government stepped in and said, we're going to give these guys some tax relief. Now, what The Age has suggested, without, this is what they're suggesting at this stage, is that tax discrepancy is now being exploited by organised crime. So whether that means that they're potentially running some of these these distilleries, breweries, whatever, but they're basically creating a sort of a black market version of alcohol somehow that is being exploited by organised crime. Now, as to how that links directly to the venues, I don't, we don't know. Are they selling this stuff? Is
yeah,
it stuff
are they
that,
getting their supply from one party that the other party doesn't like?
Or it's a protection racket. It's just like
Yeah.
these are completely unaffiliated entities, and it's just like, hey, you got a nice venue here. Be a shame if something happened to it unless you sell our stuff, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, you need to get on board, like a warning kind of thing. It's unclear, but it's literally turning into like a 1920s like
Al Capone.
Prohibition.
This is how
Prohibition
literally
era
Al
stuff, yeah.
Capone became the biggest gangster in Chicago history, was by running exactly these kinds of Prohibition era, protection rackets, bootlegging, selling alcohol into venues and all this sort of stuff, and then protecting moonshine and all that sort of stuff. I don't know if Al Capone actually was specifically into moonshine, but from what I understand, it was imported alcohol and like from Canada and stuff, or from abroad, that was then like watered down and sold to these venues. But for the most part, I watched a lot of Boardwalk Empire not that long ago, so so I'm intimately familiar with some of the details of Al Capone and the rise of the mafia. Essentially, this and how that series concludes. Interestingly. Boardwalk Empire is around the consolidation. I think it's called the National Crime Syndicate, is what it was.
Yeah.
Which is basically the birth of the mafia as like a sort of cohesive entity.
Yeah, like the mafia as we
the Five
know
Families
it
and
from
all that sort of stuff.
Films from the last 100 years. We're like, yep, that's how this started.
Yeah, and like whilst organized crime existed prior to that point, the National Crime Syndicate was the way that it cohered into this much larger, Five Families, almost like a kind of cooperative force in American politics, all the way up until like the 50s into the 70s. Really was it wasn't until into the 80s and 90s when like Giuliani and others managed to really crack down onto these organized crime networks. So not saying that necessarily that's going to happen here, but you can see how a situation like this could give rise to a more cohesive, especially when you've got that whole headless element, where the people funding the crimes are completely disconnected via encrypted networks to the people actually committing the crimes on their behalf.
Yeah.
You could see it's like decentralized
Airtasker.
terror network. Airtasker for crimes, right? Like,
Well,
it
the
is
Uber
crazy.
thing, like the analogy you made before of like Uber for crimes. Like, you don't know what crime you're going to do until you at least accept the job. Like, you have to actually say yes on the job to see, like, what you're being asked to do, and by then you're kind of in the loop. You piss off the customer if you then cancel it. Someone else jumps in on your crime, and so the guy initially posting the job is like, oi, I wanted you to firebomb somewhere. And they're like, oh, no, this other guy picked up to firebomb a place, and you're complaining to customer support, because, like, just then you have
on the
PIN
other side of it-
codes, and it gets all complicated.
I wonder where it, because
And
like they have said that some venues have been hit twice. So like, my
yeah,
brain is logically thinking, did someone
it just gets
like
hit
did they pick up the
twice,
same job
and-
twice by accident?
And the two different people who are like pushing the job forward, like one of them paid a discounted rate because their Firebomb One membership like entitles them to this sort of stuff. Like it gets
if you're firebombing a lot, the Firebomb One membership definitely makes sense. You got to
Firebomb credits per dollar that you spend. It's
then roll into your next firebombing. And obviously from the provider standpoint, you got to think about like don't you hate it when you book in a firebombing and the guy turns up late, or he says he's accepted the job but he's 30 minutes away, and it's
says he's here and you're like, but I'm literally here.
I'm here. I'm standing here. I don't see you. Where's my firebombing? Cost and the thing is with the fuel crisis, I mean, I'm very personally annoyed that people are wasting petrol on this sort of stuff. So
that's one of the things is that the police are looking at evidence of people at petrol stations, very shiftily
not
filling up jerry cans.
Yeah, right.
How does one fill a jerry can suspiciously?
I don't know. I don't know what that means.
You're just kind of looking around going...
I think if you
it's
do
on their
it,
press release. I don't know. I don't know what
I
that
think
means.
if you do it in like a top hat with a big twirly mustache, it's pretty
very
suspicious.
Snidely Whiplash is filling up his jerry can.
Yeah.
And we joke, but obviously there's a lot of...
We do, Adam. We frequently joke.
Obviously, it's quite serious. There's a lot of people that have been, affected by this. But it's interesting that, like, organised crime in Australia is fairly adaptive. It seems that they will
agile.
They're agile. They'll go from one. They'll use the. They'll look where the demand is, where they can sell things for cheap off the books, and they'll go about it.
Yeah, it's a pernicious problem. It's one that's not easy to solve. It is, it is interesting that, you know, it's almost as though, yeah, you're right, Adam. It's like completely mercenary in terms of how these networks operate. You know, like they seem to be just as willing to be like Iranian cutouts for their fire bombings as much as they are, you know, like tobacco wars or in this case, like a potential like alcohol war. Like, yeah, it is very like.
It's not like it's not like Breaking Bad where it's like this is the best product and this is like the best product you're ever gonna get. Like,
right.
I don't
we
care.
need the best meth. Like... They're just like, what? How can we turn $1 into $2? And it's like we don't care, you know, how it's done necessarily. People, it's interesting.
Oh my god, people are gonna love this sky blue whiskey. They love their whiskey just to be the color of the sky, man.
Yeah, gangsters are not as concerned about quality control as Breaking Bad would lead you to expect.
Yeah, I don't know if there's some amazing meth connoisseurs out there. Like, now that I think about it, Breaking Bad was a bit crazy for that.
It was nuts from start to finish. The whole thing was
you gotta swill your meth to get the aroma right. Like this is champagne meth.
Tuco the gangster seemed to know his meth, so you know maybe there is that. I don't know.
I mean, it is also justification as to potentially why, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like prohibition, tax, outlawing, you know, various substances that do things is actually not particularly effective in some ways because people will step in and find ways around
Drives it underground.
Yeah, I mean, it's in economics, it's referred to as negative externalities, right? If you introduce a policy, a tax or a tax levy, or if you change the tax environment in some way, it incentivizes different kinds of behavior.
Getting around it.
Right? And so negative externalities are the second and third order effects that you may not necessarily have thought of when developing a policy that can have negative effects on other areas other than the one that you're directly applying the policy to, right? So it's like if we lower the tax on you know, alcohol consumption and help these businesses out, I don't think any policy person that was involved in putting that together would have thought that this negative second order consequence might possibly come into being as a result. But that's why making policy is hard. Like, it came from a good place. Obviously they're wanting to lower the tax on these businesses, and they recognize that breweries are an important part of the nightlife and important for jobs and all this sort of stuff. And obviously it's had this unintended effect where you've incentivized particular kinds of criminal behavior in this new environment. It's really unfortunate because I think a lot of those businesses probably do need help, but as we can see, that clearly has created, and we don't know exactly what it is, but it's clearly created an incentive somewhere along the line for organized crime to find a way to insert themselves, potentially. So,
speaking of organised crime, the federal government.
Whoa! Shots fired! Beep, 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 beep. That's the kind of political commentary you can expect on Unnatural Selection. We keep it raw and real. We don't back down from the hard issues. 3 guys reading the news so you don't have to.
So, the gas tax, or the idea of taxing multinationals for gas extraction and exporting, taxing them more than they're currently being taxed, has been obviously very prominent in use in Australia over the last several weeks. Leading that charge from a political point of view has been David Pocock. And one of the things that reasons for that is that he posted up, he actually was in a Senate inquiry. He asked a government official, you know, what was the difference between money earned on like the beer excise basically versus the amount of revenue they get from taxing gas producers. And as it turns out, we do pay more on alcohol and tax. That we get like that. I can't do words anymore. We, as a country, are getting taxed more on what we consume with beer and alcohol than multinationals are for gas extraction.
The petroleum resources rent tax, specifically. And of course the gas industry will come out and they've really started to see that there's been this negative social media, well, negative to them, social media campaigns spinning up over recent weeks and months, and sort of really building in April during the Senate inquiry, or Senate hearings rather. And they've started to spin up their own sort of counter propaganda against that, saying, oh, well, the gas industry pays you know, whatever it is, $11 squillion in tax. And it's like, yeah, but that's just corporate profits tax, which every corporation is required to pay. Like, don't act like you're doing us a favor, but like paying your required taxes, like you're obliged to, just like every other business in Australia.
Well,
So you're
yeah,
not,
hey, we could be getting around that shit like Google.
the campaign,
You're
the
welcome.
campaign points to $22 billion in taxes and royalties paid each year, the biggest chunk of which is corporate tax paid by any operating company in Australia. It's like, yeah, everyone does that. And they're trying to launch this, you know, counter sort of, as I said, counter propaganda campaign. Actually, I'll show this little clip here because it's quite interesting to me. This guy is sort of featured, and he looks not too dissimilar from the guy that's Punters Politics, the guy who has been really sort of pushing this from a social media perspective. So we'll just take a quick look at this. This is the Australian energy producers have put this out there to correct the record, right?
Listen up. Wake up, people. Clean your ears. Everyone knows gas companies don't pay any tax. Duh.
That's a lie. The ATO itself says that Australia's gas industry is Australia's second biggest corporate taxpayer. It paid $21.9 billion in taxes and royalties last year alone, helping governments pay for schools, hospitals, and essential services. Australia's gas industry would rather not run this ad, but we had to set the record straight. Get the facts at australiarunsongas.com.au.
So
I mean,
so incredibly lame.
I mean, yeah, it's an ad that I disagree, George. It's an ad that, like, while they're pushing like some incorrect information there of like, yes, they pay, as you said, they pay taxes, but only in the same way that like
everyone
business
pays
kind of
taxes
has to, rather than the kind of taxes that we are talking about here. But oh god damn, that's a good ad though.
He's looking all
the
sad
guy
at his
like
coffee.
saying all this stuff
He's
and
like,
then sheepishly being like, oh no.
But
like
you could tell,
like the man who's an amalgamation of like the three of us put in a blender.
Yes.
Kind of like holding.
I'm white
his
social
laugh.
media
Do you reckon
influencer guy.
Do you reckon it's AI? I reckon that's like a real guy.
No, it's a
doing
real
that.
guy.
It's a real guy.
I
But they
think,
clearly
I
bet
chose
they paid him
someone
well
who
for
just
it.
like blends all
God, that guy must be getting so much shit hung on him by his mates. Like, well, hey guys, I'm a social media influencer douchebag type, and they're like, oh, the gas, silly me. I was misinformed about how good the gas companies are for Australia. Some fucking millennial like us, he got $3,000 to do a fucking commercial, and now his life is just ruined because of
It's
all
like
his mates dunking
fake
on him.
tradie.
Yeah, fake trade.
Yeah,
Exactly
the
the
fake
same
trading
sort of
guy.
shit. Like trying to build
Yeah,
this fake grassroots campaign saying like, oh, we're helping. You like cops? We got cops here. We got doctors. We got a couple of stock photos of a teacher who's definitely from Australia. Like, we help pay for the important stuff that government does. Aren't we fucking champions? It's like, yeah, mate, you pay your taxes because you have to. Like fucking everyone. What do you want, a cookie? You want a pat on the back for doing what you're supposed to do?
It is interesting. So what this article that we're referring to here, what it sort of talks to is that Pocock, Punters Politics, who that guy is clearly trying to
Modeled off, 100%.
model off.
Yeah.
Basically that clip that Pocock put out about the beer versus gas situation,
Yeah.
blew up. Right, lots of views. Punters Politics has got hundreds of
It's
thousands
been
of
running with it
subscribers.
for months. Yeah.
There are the Australia Institute, which is a left-wing think tank, have been calling for it for years. All these things are sort of coalescing at the moment where the message is getting a lot of cut-through. So
Yeah.
the fact that...
Australians
and
only care
to the
about
point-
stuff when you compare it to beer.
Yeah. How much does the average beer cost?
We should just do beer-related analogies on the show from now on. You'd be like, you would not believe how many beers you could buy with the money that we are not getting from the Petroleum Resources Red Tax. That's like, whatever it is, 60 million beers that we could be buying. And people are like, oh, that's a lot of beers. I definitely understand that now.
So Tom's
Are you doing the maths?
Tom's
You
doing the
son of a
math.
bitch.
I don't know. I'm just looking up just some maths. I'll get back to you in a second.
Okay, cool. We'll come back.
You
Circle back.
fucking pedant.
So to the point where this sort of online movement, so to speak, has now coalesced into the Labor backbench, One Nation, the Greens. Everyone's sort of this weird coalition, political coalition, has formed. Now, we spoke about last week that Albanese had run, or Chalmers, whoever, the government, had run modelling through the Treasury as to how this would work. But
So they were entertaining it.
yeah, and the budget's coming out like very soon. We spoke about it last week. They've formally sort of quashed any sort of movement in this budget on changing the tax.
Yeah, and Albo went out and did
situation.
a bunch of interviews basically parroting the gas industry talking points, saying
And
they already
this is-
pay so
yeah.
much tax. We've got to think about the poor, hard, the downtrodden, doing it tough, multinational gas companies. That's who we got to think about. That's who we got to look after.
Yeah, it's not a very good line to take, given that they are trying to pivot. They're trying to pitch this budget to young people.
And by the way, the proposed changes to the petroleum resources rent tax would raise more than the amount of money that's currently being stripped out of the NDIS, for example, which we talked about last week. So it's like, hey, we can have nice things, we can do nice things, but we need to raise the revenue to do them. And there's a bunch of stuff like assets that we don't tax here in Australia in the way that other countries tax assets. There's a bunch of subsidies that we give away in the form of capital gains tax discounts, in the form of negative gearing, that money that we just hand back for no good reason that I can tell to corporations and individuals that do not need it. And meanwhile, we're increasing spending on defense. The new National Defense Strategy came out last week, which is a massive scale up in the tens of billions of dollars over the next couple of years. And at the same time, well, we've got to pay for that. There's got to be a pay for. It's got to come from somewhere. And we're also stripping an equivalent amount that we're raising the defense industry spending by from the NDIS. So I think if you're a progressive in this environment, there is a really clear through line there for messaging to be like, hey, we can have nice things, but we need to stop spending money on dumb shit that we do not need, and we need to collect more revenue from people who can afford to pay, from people and organizations that can afford to pay it. And that is really that's the definition of a populist message, right?
So the budget, it is looking like they will do some tax changes around negative gearing and capital gains. And that
I
sort
hope
of
they're
thing,
incremental. I hope nothing changes too much too quickly. That'd be bad.
Critically, I think the reason why while Albanese's sort of been parroting the lobbying figures that have been given to him, at the end of the day, I think this is just a case of bad timing.
With the war in Iran, you mean?
With us trying to secure fuel supply. He has got no negotiating leverage, trying to secure the shipments coming in and getting in front of other countries in terms of who's getting the deliveries. He can't go then and rip up or change contracts with some of these suppliers.
Yeah. I think it would be happening. I think this tax change would likely be happening, but for the war in Iran.
Correct.
I think that's really just been very inconvenient. Another thing to blame
agree.
Donald Trump for.
But look, that's not to say they haven't ruled it out like absolutely never, never, never. Like they've been kind of vague on the language. So maybe it does. Maybe if the war, we'll talk about it in a minute, does or doesn't resolve in the next little bit.
They might be holding on to it so they can just have it be an election promise at the next election.
Maybe.
Well, that's what the guy, the commentator online, Sloan Zone, was saying, is basically they just want to keep it in their back pocket for next time round. But one has to wonder, when one has had one smashing election victory, a second smashing election victory, which was even more smashing than the first smashing election victory, at what point, for what purpose are we
when do you
holding
feel
back
confident? Yeah,
good
when do you feel
policy?
confident you can do stuff?
You've just had a landslide victory. Peter Dutton was unceremoniously swept out onto his ass like the bag of shit that he is. You've got a commanding supermajority, in your government. Like, at what point does one cease accruing political capital and actually start spending political capital to do important things? Like, if not now, then when? We'll wait for our fifth term before we start doing anything good. It's like, well, you'll be out on your ass by then, maybe.
It's maybe more showing that they don't want to do those good things, George.
Yeah, exactly. As Obama said, you need to get caught trying. You need to spend the political capital that you've received from the populace to do good things for them. Otherwise, they won't continue to vote for you.
They are, to be clear, they're not trying. They don't want to do too much at once. They've learned that the hard way.
Heaven forbid. Heaven forbid things improve too quickly.
They will spend that political capital on the changes to negative gearing and capital gains.
We'll see.
They've been burnt by that last time. When I say last time, 3 election cycles ago. And they're going to be very cautious about it.
They've overlearned the lessons.
The messaging.
The environment is completely different now. The budget situation is completely different now. People want these changes. All right, there has been a shift politically in a lot of, where you see even One Nation and people on the far right, psychopaths, agreeing with this. That similar to what occurred in the United States, where there's this reaction against elites. People have seen their political system not working for them. They've seen budgets tightening. They've seen spending on dumb shit like the fucking ballroom and the National Defense Strategy balloon. And they start to think, oh, this is a government that is not responsive to the needs of the people. And so that's where you get people moving to the political extremes, like One Nation and things like that, because they see that their material circumstances in their lives are not being positively affected by the people for whom they vote. And so that can only naturally, either you need to ride that wave of political discontent and say, yeah, you're right. We have been giving too much money away for too long to people who don't need it. We, the Labour Party, are going to make things right and help you. It's meant to be the party of the working class.
Yeah, but they're not. They're a
Right?
centrist party. They're not.
Yeah, they're not that anymore.
Yeah, they're not that anymore. So,
Yeah.
while that's a nice dream to have, in reality, they're going to tread very cautiously and do.
Well, then you're going to be
everything down
dealing
the
with
middle.
One Nation and opposition next time around, and things will only get worse. If people feel like they're not getting delivered for, they're not going to stick with you forever just to vote out Peter Dutton. Peter Dutton's gone, right? And maybe the next boogeyman is Pauline Hanson, right? But at a certain point, like that far right reality, the people's discontent with the system as it currently stands is going to manifest in a political voting bloc and potentially either hold the balance of power in the Senate or displace you, right?
But
so you got to deliver, you got to do stuff.
It's
for
also
people, right?
yes, but the Labor strategy for the last 2 election cycles and even before
Small target-
that had
small target strategy.
and it's worked for them. Why change what's working?
Yeah, and
Tom,
it'll work
did
forever,
you-
surely.
Did you do the math? Do we have
I
how
just
many beers
thought
we have?
if we wanna reframe some things into beer analogies in order to encourage people to realize how stupid some stuff is, I just thought I'd look up what's the average cost of a draft of beer in Australia. This is some quick napkin math, but the range seemed to be between $8 to $14 depending on the beer you're getting. I split the diff, hit $11, just went right smack bang down
Is
the
that
middle.
for a pint or a schooner?
I was
I didn't get that far, but
Okay.
I'd say probably that's a schooner. No, these
Yeah.
days. And then I was wondering how much is AUKUS costing us for these fucking submarines? And
Too
I
much.
saw there was a range between $268 billion to $368 billion. So-
385 billion was
Yeah,
the
so it's
last thing
probably-
I saw, and it's going to go up. So
Well, there we go, gone even higher. But I decided to split the diff there as well and just hit a nice round $300 billion. And $300 billion at $11 average for our beers. Instead of submarines, we could have 27,272,727,272 beers
it's a lot of beers.
instead. That's a lot of beers. So
Question is, how quickly could you get through those beers? I reckon a really good weekend across the country.
A bunch of Australians. Are we talking like an Australia Day drinking session, an Invasion Day drinking session, I should say? Or are we
Well,
talking
it's-
about how drunk are we talking?
Well, look, it's just
7
shy-
Anzac days in a row.
Okay,
Yeah,
you get 700,000 patriots across the country
Well-
drinking around the clock for 20
yeah.
for 26 weeks, and we can bang through it.
Well, I went even further just to think what's the population of Australia? It's like 25
yeah.
million people
Yeah.
or something like that. So that's including every man, woman, and child.
Well, you need
in the
you got to restrict it
country.
presumably
That's
to
nearly
drinkers.
No.
1,100
Your
beers
son,
each.
George, is going to have beers. Oh, how much was it?
It's nearly 1,100 beers each. 1,090 beers.
You know what we need?
For
We
every man,
need.
woman, and child in the country,
And-
whether they want them or not.
I would rather have a strategic national beer reserve that allows my son to have subsidized beers for the rest of his life than
Beer goes
I would
off.
rather have those fucking
Than
submarines.
those fucking submarines. So there you go. Do you
Okay.
want 1,100 beers, or
beers.
do you want submarines in 40
Hell
years?
yeah.
Maybe.
That's honestly great
That's the next
messaging.
election.
Amazing.
Honestly, so fucking good.
Yeah.
Tom, that was the math we didn't know we needed, but we definitely deserved. So thank you very much.
I'm sure we're going to get comments on that one correcting any of that, but it was some quick napkin math. Okay.
Tom's our own beer-based Casey Newton.
Indeed. Now we
Casey
do need to
Newton,
move on.
Casey Nelson, the guy who does the
Casey-
numbers.
Oh,
Casey Biggs.
Casey.
Casey Briggs.
Briggs.
I'm
Briggs
thinking
Casey.
I'm mixing him up and a
Isaac
reporter from
Newton.
Hard Fork. Yeah, Isaac Newton.
Yeah.
He's so drunk that he just watches the apple fall.
Now we do need to move on, and it is a sad story, so we're going to take the mood down now. We said we'd give you an emotional.
Yeah, thanks for putting
range.
this in the rundown. Thanks for for the comedy show. Thank you.
But the headline is Riots Erupt Over Australian Aboriginal Girls Murder as Suspect Arrested. So this happened yesterday, and it's been happening, the case has been developing, I guess, over the last number of days. So what happened was, the remains have been found of a 5-year-old Indigenous girl outside Alice Springs. A man has been arrested in connection with her murder. And the thing that stands out about this, that's probably a little bit different to a lot of the other horrible things that happen in some parts of the Northern Territory, with disaffected communities and that kind of thing, is being the community response to this. Now, they're going back a little bit. The suspect that's been arrested is, I think, Jefferson.
Jefferson Lewis, a 47-year-old man.
Yep.
Who presented himself to police at one of the town camps in Alice Springs.
So he was released from prison not that long ago for some assault and a few other different charges. And not long afterwards, he was seen. Apparently, there was one of the articles I read was a news.com.au article. I think said that he was witnessed leading the girl away from one of these camps. And then, they found her. There was a search conducted. She was reported missing, and a search was conducted, and they found her remains. And then, as you said,
remains that they believe to be hers. I don't know if that's been confirmed yet.
Yeah. Now, he handed himself in to police at one of these camps. Mm-hmm. He was basically. They then surrounded him and beat the shit out of him.
The locals at this.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, Al Jazeera, which is the source we're reporting off here, notes that apparently this sort of like payback sort of mentality is something that's a part of Indigenous culture. I don't really understand it.
I read that line and I was a bit like, that's a bit pointed. Like,
well,
how do I feel about that?
I don't really understand it. But
so I am aware of like Makarrata, which is a form of like, this sort of justice, which is about, sort of injuring a perpetrator, right, in order to, like that's the sort of the practice of like, sort of spearing someone's leg, right, which is often talked about in very racial ways in the media about, sort of disabling someone, preventing them from, sort of being able to commit crimes in the future sort of thing. It's also like a mark of shame, as I understand it. So it's not something I'm like massively into, but I'm aware that is a thing of like, that sort of traditional justice, right?
Yeah.
But equating that with just like wanton mob violence, which is like outside of any kind of like, traditional legal structure, is that like those two things aren't quite the same thing.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we're correlating two things that aren't necessarily related. But either way, there was he was harmed while under arrest. Now then they moved him to the hospital in Alice Springs. Word got out. And then I think they're saying up to about 400 people basically rocked up at the hospital and were basically calling for him to, so they could go at him again. Now, in the process, like several cars were set on fire. Everyone was really angry.
Yeah, it was described as a riot.
Yeah, they had to. They've had to bring extra police down from Darwin, and they had to extract him away from Alice Springs, and they've moved him to some unknown facility in Darwin.
Obviously around fears for his safety. It said he needed to seek medical treatment after that interaction with that crowd, right?
But obviously everyone's very upset by this. There's a lot of emotion. I just thought it was worth noting that this is a fairly significant event that's happened in the central part of our country, and
super funny. So thanks for bringing it up on the comedy podcast, Adam.
It's all good.
It's been great to have no jokes during this entire fucking section. Thank you.
I don't know. I just found reading this it just shows another like I feel it's emblematic of just the ways that how events in the Northern Territory are reported on and how governments respond to it and stuff is still really fucked. Like, that's why I was shocked by this coming from Al Jazeera. Like, George, I know you gave some context there around some, like cultural or traditional forms of either retribution or punishment in terms of from crime and all that sort of stuff.
I mean,
but
that's
the
just
way
from
that
a
this
summary
art,
I read. I'm not
yeah,
like worded
that,
up on it
that's
at
the
all,
thing.
so to be clear.
But just the way that this article from Al Jazeera sort of phrased it, because I think it was more maybe talking about the riot specifically compared to the initial beating when he turned himself in or whatever, but saying, quote, Australia's public broadcaster ABC broadcast images of a crowd calling for, quote, payback, which refers to traditional, mostly physical punishment in Aboriginal societies. I was a bit like, whoa, with zero of that, just saying like, hey, Aboriginal societies traditionally just like to beat the shit out of people.
Yeah, there's a conflation
that
of
makes
two
it
different
really
things there.
sound like it feels like, you know, the old colonial things of like quote unquote savagery and
you know
all this
what
sort of
though?
stuff. I'm like,
this
yikes.
wasn't the worst article that I found on this. I think
I imagine there's a lot
I posted
worse.
this because it was like
I have not
the
seen the Murdoch press talk about this yet.
Yeah, exactly.
But I imagine it's not great. Just I just read that and thought, oh, that's wow. Okay, like maybe how about think about it as it's a community that's furious about a child being murdered.
Right.
That I'm not calling for like saying it's okay to start setting cars on fire and be violent.
No, but you
and everything,
understand
I
why they're
understand
upset.
the rage.
If this happened in my community, I'd be very pissed off as well, right? It's got nothing to do with the color of one's skin as to the community reaction of on a vicious crime like this, right?
And then one of the other responses that the governments and the police have taken is, for a day they're banning purchasing alcohol.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, okay, you're mad that a girl was killed in your community, you're not allowed to drink. I bet they wouldn't do that here.
No.
If people in Melbourne or Sydney were mad, like, you know, they didn't ban booze after the police beatings when President Herzog was here.
Yeah, and I know they're worried about alcohol-fueled violence, kind of like pouring petrol on the fire. It is a real thing, but it's like,
fuck, have you seen when the soccer's on?
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Tom, and that the way that we police, you know, Aboriginal communities and the way that we police white communities is very different. There's no escaping that, right?
And I understand. So, which I think further drives home the point for me that I understand why they're so angry, even though the guy turned himself in and all this sort of stuff. Like
it's a flashpoint for a number of kinds of injustice rearing their head at the same time.
Of course, Indigenous communities, particularly in the Northern Territory, probably don't feel like even a guy turning himself into police will get them justice.
Yeah. The system isn't going to work for them, so to speak. The Northern Territory and Alice Springs does have, you know, issues with alcohol-related violence, and that is something that came to a head and was reported on widely and was used, I guess, as almost a political tool during the Voice referendum. One thing I did want to note was that, you know, it's been a year or two now since that, and you know, despite
2023, late 2023, we're nearly 3 years from that, aren't we?
It's just, you know, and we said it at the time when the referendum was lost, but you know, nothing's changed.
Still waiting for the coalition's alternative plan. Still waiting on that. I'm sure it's fucking great. They've been cooking it for ages.
But also, like, I don't know if the Labor government's done that much either.
Oh, they've abandoned it. They said this was a huge loser for us. We're not going back there again.
They did what they promised. They held the referendum.
And they've said, well, we did our job.
Right?
That's it.
Yeah.
They're not going to put themselves out there, stick their necks out on an issue like this again for some time, I expect.
But thoughts with the family, and hopefully justice does take its course on that one.
Yeah.
So let's move on to a also horrible story, but less tragic, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how to transition from that to that.
None of this stuff in the middle of the show is going to be usable for clips. None of this. I can't fucking post any of this. What am I going to do, Adam?
It's local news, George.
Okay, let's talk about this now. You fucking go ahead.
Yeah. Former Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk's surgeon partner has been charged with rape. So, Brisbane bariatric surgeon Vahid Reza Adib has handed himself into police, been charged, released on bail for rape, sexual assault, and deprivation of liberty.
I like that you obviously spend some time trying to understand how to pronounce the guy's name before you read the story this time, which is good. That's appreciated. So
That's okay. No worries. You're welcome. The
anytime there's too many consonants in a name, Adam freaks
I
out.
freaks out. It's just
Yeah.
it's too many syllables there in the word. But what the alleged assault took place on March 30 in his apartment in Goodman Terrace. So, yeah, it's interesting because Palaszczuk is currently doing a speaking tour for her new book, and they are still together. And she's sort of, I guess it's her memoir that she's trying to sort of publish. This is sort of
Published too early.
Indeed. There's the thing with memoirs is that, like, whenever you publish them, inevitably you have a life after that memoir.
Yeah, much
the
like
story
much like a
continues.
podcast, things happen after they're published.
Indeed. Adib has said he's going to fight the charges, but and they got together during I think her tenure as premier, and she has declined to comment. But I'm sure the Murdoch Press will have their fun with this one, given that she was a Labor premier. But we don't really have a lot of detail on sort of what, apart from the charges that have been laid and what the allegations are. But he's due to appear on the Southport Magistrates Court on the 14th of May.
When reached for comment, Anastasia Palaszczuk said during a book event, said she was, quote, not aware of any investigation the other day. So she's obviously trying to put some distance between herself and these allegations against her partner, right? Understandably.
Yeah. And it's a pretty horrible thing probably to happen to her as well, is that your partner's not only,
Allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, a pretty horrible thing to happen to her as well in this, as well as the victim. So, I'm sure there'll be more that comes out about this. But this is a fairly high. Adib's a fairly well-known surgeon in Queensland as well. Like he's a bit of power there, I would say. So
He was married. Oh, not married. He was partnered with the former premier, right? So obviously, this person who's got a lot of influence and a lot of sway. Obviously, Adib's website said he had performed more than 20,000 operations and had expertise in laparoscopic surgery and obesity management. He's worked in Brisbane since he was a surgical trainee in the mid 1990s. So operating as a surgeon for over 30 years. Considerable amount of sort of not just political power because of his association with Anastasia Palaszczuk, but presumably financial power and resources at his disposal as well, right?
I just find it's interesting that that they've pressed charges against someone who has that power, and that there isn't some sort of.
Well, it's good. I mean, it's good. If a crime's been committed, one would expect that everyone gets treated equally before the law, right? Yep. You don't get a pass just because your partner used to be the premier, right? But you're right, Adam, that they must have. The police must have treaded really carefully on this because it's such a high-profile, potential arrest.
So that's all the sad stuff from the local
great.
news.
Thanks for that.
No worries.
Cool. Yeah,
Done.
cheers.
George is really happy about it.
I love it. George's like, no, you put some sad stuff in the middle of the show. Fuck you. Anyway, let's talk about how America's bringing down the world. Cheery.
Okay, but it's
a
like
cheery topic. You know what?
We can make fun of
people
it.
have died in Iran?
Well, have you got any fucking jokes about the rape, Tom, that we need to get out before we move on? Or probably not, hey?
No, I don't. It's
because it's like fucking
about
horrible.
Me. It's about you.
Or maybe like the young girl that got murdered. Maybe we can talk about that. Have you got any ha-has? Shithead.
It's almost like he could have said, I don't want to talk about that before the show, but he didn't. But here we are.
Well, it's much funnier to make the comment that I don't want to talk about it, I suppose. So I suppose in a roundabout way, you did give me content, Adam. Democrats in the United States have called BS on Trump's letter claiming Iran hostilities, quote, have been terminated. Senate Democrats have said that Donald Trump's claim that the war in Iran is over in a formal letter that the president sent on Friday last week to Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson. Not last Friday, as in the Friday that's just passed. Senate Democrats have said basically, yeah, that's bullshit. You know, just because there's been no exchange of fire since April 7th doesn't mean that the war is actually over. And this is obviously part of Trump's ploy to just kind of like walk away from the sort of shit dumpster fire that he's built for the rest of us, and with the Strait of Hormuz and it's the sort of blockage and the situation with Iran, and he's just kind of gone, man, this war is really unpopular. Maybe I just walk away and just say it's everyone else's problem to fix the mistake that I made now. So
That's one way to get out of your problems.
there has been no exchange of fire between the United States forces and Iran since April 7th, 2026. The hostilities that began on February 28th have been terminated, Trump wrote, as the ongoing war he claimed the US won in the first hour of combat continues with competing Iranian and US blockades of the Persian Gulf. That's bullshit, said Chuck Schumer, the Democratic minority leader in the Senate. This is an illegal war, and every day Republicans remain complicit and allow it to continue as another day that lives are endangered, chaos erupts, and prices increase, all while Americans foot the bill.
Why does Chuck Schumer sound
That's
like
Schumer.
Donald Trump?
Yeah,
It's just an old man. That's my old man voice.
it's an old man one.
This thing from the Democrats where they're like, man, we're going to really stand up to Trump and we're going to like occasionally drop a swear. And that's going to show how the American people, how real we are. It's like, so.
You can tell they're serious when they drop a
Wow.
bullshit.
Man, that's bullshit. Like as he adjusts his old man glasses, it's like,
Yeah, no,
that's-
call me when Chuck Schumer says, "The fuck are you doing, you moronic cunt?"
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
when he
yeah,
says
yeah.
something like that, then I know he means business.
Hey, dipshit. You need to
Yeah.
be removed from 25th. Yeah, with the 25th Amendment, you fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
I mean, he said that the hostilities are over, but I mean, then he's like, but we might resume them again. Like,
So, well, this is live
Oh.
as of 2 hours ago. US Donald, so that was yesterday, Friday, right? Today, US President Donald Trump has rejected the latest Iranian proposal to end the war, saying the delegation is, quote, asking for things that I can't agree to. He told reporters one of the options for the US was to blast the hell out of them, but that he preferred not to.
well, that's nice. He's using his
So-
so, there, isn't he?
The war's over, but the peace plan is no good, and I may have to bomb them.
Yeah.
Which definitely sounds like
The war's still happening.
the war's still happening.
Yeah.
Very much so. Even if
It's
nothing's
very-
Yeah, if
currently
it
being fired.
walks like a war's still happening and it quacks like a war's still happening, I think the war's still happening.
I just wish countries would declare war like they used to. Just declare a state of war, and then it's very clear where the parameters are of where the war starts and ends. Like this whole we've attacked you, but when we're fighting, but we're not actually
Yeah,
fighting.
we're seeing each other, but we're not really together, and then they just
Put a
ghost
label on
the
it.
war, and it's like, you just label it, commit,
Yeah, you do
that's-
need to put a label on it at some point. These just, weird you up texts just can't go
Hey,
on
you up for a
forever.
bombing?
Yeah.
Of course, Donald Trump can't unilaterally declare war on Iran because that has to involve Congress.
Yes, and Congress would presumably not give an authorization for the use of force for this purpose because the war is both illegal, unconstitutional, unjust,
and stupid.
really, really fucking stupid. So,
Yeah.
But it's obvious that he's gotten in. He's trying to avoid the escalation trap, right? And the way he's doing that is by backing
thing about the
slowly
escalation
into
trap,
the
Adam,
hedge.
is that
backing
it's a
slowly
trap.
into the hedge. He's trying to go into the hedge, but it's kind of like he can't quite get in there because the hedge is made of concrete. And I just, I mean, look, maybe he'll get away with this to a certain extent. Like maybe it's one of those things where he just slowly withdraws over time. Publicly, they just put out whatever comms they want to. But eventually the status quo is, I think it will be that Iran retains control of the strait. And
they get their toll booth, things go back to normal-ish. Trump just backs away like Homer Simpson into so many hedges, and everything is much worse. Nothing is quite resolved until the next time that Donald Trump wants to start
Cuba.
bombing Cuba or whatever his new colonialist foreign expansion project
Whichever other foreign war he wants to tie them up into after saying no more.
He did
foreign
say very explicitly that the Cuba is next, basically. Like,
Oh, they've
but
been
he-
blockading
yeah.
Cuba, and there's been massive issues in the country as a result. Hospitals have been going without power, and it is a deliberate strategy to isolate and blockade Cuba.
Yeah.
for the purposes of executing a regime change. I just don't know why these American colonialist, expansionist fuckheads feel the need to just swing their dicks all over the world for no one's benefit. Like, why does this keep happening? Like, why are
diplomacy?
why are their brains
Dick
so
boat
rotted that they think
diplomacy.
that this is a good like fucking fix your healthcare, cunt. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You didn't even fix the Strait of Hormuz, which
Yeah.
you broke, and now you're like, turns out this is everyone else's problem. I thought it was me, but apparently I'm perfect. I'm
We
gonna
don't
go hang
even
out with
need our
Prince
oil
Charles.
from here.
We don't even need it. I don't even know why I did this. This is crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe did they just get the wrong? Yeah, I can't decide whether or not we owe George Lucas an apology for Star Wars Episode 1 and just how we block trade routes and isolation of Naboo and it being like the start of galactic conflict. Whether or not do we owe George Lucas an apology for being very prescient with
I don't
that,
think so.
or should we blame him because clearly they just watched that film, identified with the wrong characters in it, and thought, that's a great idea. The racial stereotype aliens had a great plan.
I love this Palpatine guy. I love how he sees power. The guy's very strong, very masculine.
Yep.
Star Wars is
Oh boy.
like
Here we go.
it's actually
Now I've
a
done it.
really intelligent take on the rise of fascism.
Oh yeah.
Still pretty racist though.
I mean, apart from that,
Oh,
apart
yeah,
from
yeah.
now there are two of them.
Yeah.
Like,
So-
like
Yeah, there's a lot of very dicey characters. The guy who's clearly meant to be in episode 1, the Dick the girl, Watto,
Watto,
clearly is
junkyard
either
alien who's like
junkyard alien is clearly meant to be some sort of like Middle Eastern or Israeli,
Middle
kind of like
Eastern,
money grubbing stereotype. Sort of. There's a lot of the Jar Jar Binks. Most racist fucking character of all time. Yeah, that's there's a lot of things that we can apologize to George Lucas for, but episode
not
1, The
that.
Phantom Menace, is not one
But-
of them.
But I mean the plan of I've already forgotten what those aliens' names are. I want to say Newt Gunray. Is that right?
Viceroy Gunray.
Viceroy
Yes.
Gunray?
Trade
where
Federation.
where they trade blockade a country, like
It's not-
rolling
it's not his
power
idea,
outages
it's
and all that sort of
Palpatine's idea.
stuff. Yeah, but it's like, that's exactly what they're doing now. And this movie came out in 1999.
I would argue that Andor is a much better Star Wars based examination of how the rise of fascism occurs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
but-
everyone knows the aliens in episode 1. Is my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Go watch
but
Andor,
again,
Tom. Just watch Andor.
I'll get to it.
Andor would not exist without the groundwork that was laid in the films.
Yeah, there
So,
you go.
It's all George Lucas's world. He's a terrible screenwriter,
He's bad.
but his ability to create a world and to have all these plot points and political
Okay,
elements
the world building
through
is good. Let's just get Tony Gilroy to write it from now on. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, in the wake of Trump's attempted assassination attempt that we discussed last week at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, shortly thereafter, he conducted an interview here with 60 Minutes, and I just wanted to play a little section of it because it is delicious. This is your dessert for the podcast. Savor it. Here it comes.
Waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people.
So I might
Maybe go back a bit further for some
Yeah.
context.
Let me
on
cut
that,
this
yeah.
out. What's the time on this? 1:03.
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people. Horrible people. Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
No, you
I'm not a
think he was
pedophile.
referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. You should be ashamed of yourself reading that, because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President,
and I
these
was
are the
never,
gunman's words.
excuse me. You shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace.
So what he's referring to there, but what the clip omits, is that the 60 Minutes reporter read an extract from the manifesto of the accused shooter, saying that he didn't want someone who was a rapist and pedophile, with blood on his hands, running the country anymore.
Yeah. To which
and
he said, "I'm not any of those things."
I'm not a rapist, and she goes, Oh, you think he was talking about you, which is crazy work from 60 Minutes. I love gotcha journalism at its fun. Oh my lord, I didn't even think that he was talking about you. You think he's talking about you? Amazing work.
Had that locked and loaded.
Ready to go.
Like, he's going to deny it, and I'll be like, ayo.
Oh, what, do you think you identify with the characterization of rapist and pedophile? Is that what you're saying?
And if it was any normal interviewee, like Prince Andrew, it'd be game over. But Trump just pushes through it and dominates the conversation.
Anytime that you have to say in an interview, I'm not a pedophile, you're losing. That is a losing interview, right?
Yeah, not doing great. And yeah, he does the classic, like, he does it, Tucker Carlson does it, like all sort of these like ultra conservative MAGA fuckheads do it, where they just keep saying, excuse me, whenever someone has any kind of contradicting or like catching them out in their bullshit. They just repeatedly say it to be like, it's actually rude of you to hit me with facts.
Yeah.
How very dare you? A pedophile is talking.
I mean, not a pedophile is what I mean.
I mean, oh boy.
Oh, jeez. They really got you this time.
I wish I was Prince Andrew right now. I'm sweating. I wish I couldn't sweat.
There was one the other day that JD Vance had where they asked him about whether he was concerned about the missile depletion of US weapons stocks. And he's like, he got very sort of like up at arms about the nature of the question. But then by the end of it, it sort of said, yeah, no, I am. And that's an accurate report.
A little bit. Yeah, I wasn't in favor of this, to be clear. To that end, the Republican commentary sphere has, as you'd expect, gone completely batshit over this. The strongest argument that I've been seeing put forward from across the shitheadverse is that this is why we need the ballroom, is because this is Trump needs a highly secure facility in order to conduct public events, to stop this sort of stuff from happening. There's been a lot of commentary about
what.
Well, because like the White House ballroom would be on White House grounds, it'd be much more secure. They've got all these facilities to stop people getting.
Oh, for the shooting. I was like, for him to not be a pedophile.
No. I mean, if we learnt anything from Jeffrey Epstein's island, is that presumably having a basement under the house would actually be more conducive to pedophilic acts. One would imagine, rather than less conducive. But yeah, there's been a lot of commentary about the Secret Service and did they do a good enough job? And obviously, like the hotel that the White House Correspondents' Dinner was conducted at, it's just a hotel, so it's still operating as a hotel. People were staying there. There were layers of security between this attacker and the president. So to my mind, it's like, well, this is the system working correctly, but then it's talking about,
the guy didn't make it anywhere near the president.
He didn't make it anywhere near the president. This is in the foyer. There was like another layer of security between him and the room where the president was in, and he had security around him. So he's like 3 layers away from being able to harm anyone that would have been like an important cabinet member or the president himself. So it's like, to my mind, it's like, okay, the Secret Service, sort of did their job. They did what they were supposed to do. No one was killed, right? The guy was arrested and taken away. It's like the system worked as intended, right? But this idea of like, the Democrats have been fermenting all this hateful rhetoric, and that's why all these people are wanting to try and kill President Trump. And it's like, bro, didn't you open your first campaign with Mexicans are rapists and killers, and some I assume are good people? Like, if anyone has contributed to the degradation of the public discourse in America and globally, if we had to name a single figure who was responsible for advocating political violence specifically, one would be forced to name Donald Trump. Okay, talk about if you punch those other protesters at my rallies, I'm going to pay you legal fees. Laughing about
stop the steal.
All this stop the steal, encouraging violence. We're going to go down there and fight. All this stuff around press freedoms and bashing the press and calling them enemy of the people. The stuff around basically celebrating the death of Robert Mueller and Rob Reiner because they were critics of his. Like, there is no single figure in American history who has done more to propound the idea that political violence is acceptable than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So the idea that he would then turn around and say, Actually, it's the Democrats' fault because they don't like me very much and they make jokes about my tiny hands and penis. Like that's ridiculous. Like you specifically have done the most to rend the fabric of society in twain with regards to political violence, right?
Yeah, actually,
Such a joke.
I take back what I said before. It won't be when he drops a C-bomb that I take Chuck Schumer seriously that he's angry. It's when he takes a direct shot at Trump's tiny dick.
Yeah.
When Chuck Schumer...
This is bullshit. The president has a tiny prick.
Yeah, when he says something like that, then I know he means business. And not in a letter. I want him in front of microphones saying it. None of this,
Yelling.
we wrote a strongly worded letter crap.
And the president's going to have to respond. On that note, we always will be Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at our handle, at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Motherflippin' TikTok. We are posting more or less daily clips on YouTube and TikTok. So if you'd like to see any of the visual elements of the show and you're not watching the live stream or the extended YouTube cut, that would be the place to go for all of those things. And if you want to say anything mean about me personally, as it seems, make sure you follow me on Instagram and TikTok at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Threads at tom.heath.
And you can follow me down to the latest bootleg liquor outlet where I'll be sort of getting in on the scene, I guess. Yeah. It's the only way to make a buck in this economy.
Liquor? I barely even know it.
Yeah. I was going to say follow Adam down just to Town Hall where he's going to demand his 1,100 beers.
I want my beers.
This is a good point.
Yeah.
Got to remember that number for the rest of my life. Well, over what period do we need to drink those beers?
A lifetime, one would assume.
Beer does have, like, maybe not necessarily an expiry, but it will change.
No, to be clear, it would be a strategic beer fund that the government would then dispense beers upon request. That's how I envision it.
I want my 1,090 beers delivered to my house.
You want it up front.
Immediately.
Yeah.
I am Bart Simpson and I want my elephant. Like, make it.
So if you drank 5 beers a day, it'd take you 220 days to that's alcoholism.
I actually need to go. That's alcohol. You're describing alcoholism. I need to go, so we need to end the show. Goodbye.
Okay.